Hello, Stacy Fisher here, your brand ambassador for Senior Resource Connectors. We wanted to answer some of the most pressing questions that families are facing with their aging loved ones. So we've enlisted the help of our incredible coalition of age-friendly businesses. We'll be seeing Scott Fisher chatting with various coalition members as we listen, learn, and prepare for the next chapter in the lives of our vulnerable seniors together.
And everybody today, this is Scott Fisher, and I'm here with my good friend, Michelle Cornelius. Michelle is the Vice President of Memory Care Services for Cogir Senior Living. She and I have known each other for, I'll bet, 15 years now. She is one of the real champions in our senior living industries. Her role now takes her outside of the greater Metro Phoenix area to serve families and communities all over the nation with her job at Cogir. So, Michelle, thank you for joining me today and welcome.
Good to see your face again, Scott. It's been too long.
It has been. It has been. You guys, today we're going to talk about, we're going to visit with Michelle over a couple of these segments. And the first one today is something that's near and dear to my heart. And so many of us who have worked in clinical spaces, I have a nursing background. Michelle's a social worker by trade. We have seen where families have been startled when they've received that diagnosis of dementia for a loved one, and they didn't recognize what was going on. And I wanted to talk, Michelle, a little bit about what the heck is going on with people, or what should people be looking for when a loved one, a spouse, a mom, a dad, an uncle might be having some of those early expressions of a disease process, and what are they seeing and what are they feeling and all that? Could you talk about that?
Yeah, it's so common, especially in these recent years, for us to say how stressed we are, to talk about senior moments, brain farts. And when we start to look back at it, we realize, oh, those were really early signs of something going on. It's scary, though, when a person first has these symptoms, both for the person experiencing them and for the family. And so it's easy to kind of write it off and think, let's just watch and see if it keeps happening, see where this plays out. And I get it. I get that the word dementia and Alzheimer's disease is scary, and any of those terminology, we don't really know what are we going to do if this happens. So sometimes it's easier to ignore it than to feel like we want to face it head on. Things that we really need to be concerned about, though, are if your person is forgetting what they did earlier in the day. This is hard when you're at a distance. I get calls from families all the time. They're like, oh, Dad's fine. I talked to him yesterday. He said he played golf. Like, well, did you check with Mom? Did he really play golf? Did you check with his golfing buddies? Or I played golf, a kind of standard response. And he always says that because he said that for the last 15 years. When people start to make unsafe choices, we need to be concerned.
Safety really becomes the
Absolutely.
Bottom line with so many families I've talked to is when safety.
Yeah. And here in Arizona right now in the summer, it's super hot outside. So are we going outside and do we notice that just because they're sunburned and we say, hey, how'd you get sunburned? We have to look for other signs because they're not necessarily going to share the reality of what's going on with them. They're not going to say, oh, I went out the front door and it locked behind me and a neighbor saw me outside and came over and unlocked the house and let me in. And that's what happens sometimes. The neighbors are the ones to call the family.
I know a family, that's close to me that dad has some neuropathy or loss of feeling in his lower legs, right? He's also had some light confusion following a stroke that he had. And he went down the street to go get some mail, thinking it was all fine. He didn't have any shoes on.
Oh my goodness.
And then burnt the heck out of his feet, right? And then he didn't realize until his feet hurt. And it was completely benign in his effort just to go get the
Right.
mail. But
And sometimes the mind gets distracted going to the mail, and I look up and I don't remember which way my house is.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes me a few minutes to orient myself to where to go again. When people don't know those familiar things, that's a concern. The challenge is they're scared too, and they don't like to share those things with their family. They don't want to tell the kids, oh, I realized I forgot to fill my medications for the last 3 months. When I went to the doctor's office today, they told me that I've been forgetting. They don't say, oh, yeah, I looked in my refrigerator and all the food was expired. And families don't think to look for those things because we've never had to look at them before.
Right.
That's hard, but what we see sometimes more often is like an overall change in mood. People start to become more withdrawn. They don't want to go out as frequently. And when we start to ask questions and explore it, it's because they've had issues with that they haven't shared with us before. Oh, I don't want to drive anymore after dark, so I'm not going to go out. Mm-hmm. Well, has something happened after dark? Yeah, I was going over to my friend's house and I couldn't figure out where it was.
Right.
Said, oh, Mom, you've known them for 20 years. How do you not know where their house is?
Right.
So they blame other things when it's really a cognitive issue. Right.
It seems to be, at least in my experiences, that fear kicks in. Right. Where's this going? I do have some blank spots somewhere in my orientation or memory, and I'm aware of it. That would freak me out. Yeah. Of course, now I just turned 60, so every time I forget where I laid my keys, you start wondering, what's up? And maybe we should speak. You might want to speak to that too. That
you remember what you're driving, Scott.
Yeah, I do. I know
as long as you know the vehicle, you're good.
I have seen, besides the family I share with you, I've seen, and I know you have too, so many traumas because there has been some awareness by the family for the affected person, but there's been the fear to intervene. There's shame, there's fear, there's anxiety, there's denial. There's a lot of protective mechanisms we do as people, as humans, to keep us thinking we're keeping ourselves safe when in fact we're opening the door to potential more issues, right?
And it's hard because it's not only about talking to the person in safety, but it's a role reversal. It's really hard for a sibling or a spouse or a child to start saying to their person, hey, I think you're having troubles. Because as siblings, we don't tend to do that. Children, we don't do that with our parents. It's the other way around. Right. Spouses might express concerns, but it's a joined effort. It's not one person always saying to the other. So some of these situations can be really uncomfortable for folks to be in, and they don't know how to approach it. What do you say to somebody, especially even in, personal circumstances? We've had folks that I'm close to who are very young. How do we approach it when somebody is in their 50s? And that's not uncommon to have to work with people who are much younger too.
Yeah, we've both done that, and in my work on the placement business, I've had to literally help people in their 50s, late 40s, and early 50s move into senior living because their disease had progressed to the point where their loved ones couldn't handle it at home. It's brutal.
Yeah. And talk about the ultimate sandwich generation. It's not caring for a senior parent, it's caring for a spouse and often kids who are still in high school or college or younger.
Right. I'm concerned for so many of us that are in that 45 to 65 year who could be part of the sandwich generation, or maybe our kids are moved out, but we still have young adult children and our parents. Of course, most of our parents that are, folks my age, they survived World War II. They survived the end of the Depression. They are the hardiest, most robust, stubborn, often.
And no kid is going to tell me what to do.
Right.
It's still a generation where kids are supposed to listen to their parents.
Correct. And that's the orientation. And so what do we say to the kids to help them with that potential wall that they might hit? Because what I don't want is, or I want to help want to help in that a year down the road, if they were recognizing some of those things you talked about earlier, and then there's a crisis or there's a big tragedy at some point, and we've seen that, that they don't go, oh, they shame and beat themselves up, or they say, that was the beginnings of that. I should have been paying more attention. Because the earliest signs where you get that shifting in personality, shifting in mood, judgment and insight are impaired, they make decisions they would have never made before. I want to help that guy so that they don't feel that sense of guilt or beat themselves up down the road if something gets missed.
Yeah, we talk about having no regrets. And we talk about that often related to end of life, but it needs to be all along. In fact, the other day I heard something, I was listening to a podcast or something talk about, it was just related to women's safety. And it's better to insult people than to be dead. And they're relating that to female attacks and things like that in public. But then I also started thinking about how relevant is that phrase to our families with dementia. I would rather insult a person. I would rather have them angry with me than have their health or safety be at risk.
Yeah.
And yes, it hurts the relationship sometimes.
Right.
The reality is, what do we want? Are we trying to hold on to the relationship or the person's health and safety?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's easier when somebody's older because we can say, oh, this is a normal part of aging. When we go to the doctor this week, they're going to do a mental state exam and see how you're doing. And everybody over the age of 65 has to do this.
Yeah.
And Medicare is building that into some of their visits. So as people get older, it's built in. It's hard when people are younger and we can't say that. And when they don't recognize it. So I really recommend sometimes saying, spouse, mom, dad, sibling, I know you're not going to agree with what I'm going to say. I'm worried about you. I know you don't see this, and give specific examples about what you see. I see that last month you didn't pay your electric bill and you paid your water bill twice. I see that you got lost going to places that you always know, and expect them to write that off. Oh, I just forgot. Oh, it was no big deal. And you have to sit and say, I know you don't think it's a big deal. I know, but I see these same things repeatedly and I'm worried about you. Right. I'm not bringing this up to make you angry. I'm not bringing this up to try to take control of anything. I just want to make sure you're getting the help that you need to be healthy.
And love. Well, and love. I love you dearly.
Love you.
I would never want to intrude or control your life. I am only concerned for you, right? And you say that often and frequently.
Often. Yeah. Repeat that all of the time. I love you. I'm worried about you. I don't want anything to happen to you.
Any thoughts so that if they are going to a physician's office or a specialist, and you're not getting the whole story, and you want to inject yourself into the doctor's, how do you help people with that idea?
That can be hard,
yeah.
Because people don't want you at the appointment all of the time.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want you to hear what they're going to say or what the doctor's going to say. And doctors have to comply with HIPAA and their confidentiality regulations. I really recommend encouraging the person to let you come and let them know that they might hear things at that appointment that they don't want to hear, and you're not trying to embarrass them. You're not trying to make it sound horrible. You just want the doctor to really understand the situation so they can make a good assessment about what's going on and give guidance.
Okay.
I talk all of the time about presenting your worst day, not your best day. And the worst day might only happen once every 45 days.
Right.
But that worst day is the one I'm worried about, Mom. So I'm going to talk about this worst day because I know it doesn't happen often. And I'm going to tell the doctor it doesn't happen often, but I'm going to tell them this was what happened and I'm worried about it.
Right.
If they won't let you come to the doctor's appointment, write a letter to the doctor. Now, I've had some doctors throw the family kind of under the bus and say, I got a letter from your family and they said this about you. And it's like, no,
Hey.
we don't want that. We want the doctor to be supportive. But you may not be able to get information from the doctor, but you can give information to the doctor. That doesn't break that confidentiality. So writing a letter to the doctor, trying to be in on those appointments, and trying to go through the process of getting a power of attorney in place so that you can be involved in those medical decisions.
Yeah, that you bring up a whole nother issue,
right,
to make sure that your legal stuff's all in play. And I'm going to have some conversations with some of our elder law and estate planning attorneys later in our series to talk about that, Michelle. But I think in the case of my own mom, when she moved here from out of state, we went and had her documents all redone. I went to her first doctor's appointment with her. She allowed me to go in. Doctor was awesome, talked to us both. And so now I'm established with him. She does her own business. But when she fell during the pandemic and broke her wrist, I had a pathway already in play. Mm-hmm. And man, I want to just tell families, wherever you can get ahead of the game a little bit with those simple tasks, that makes a big difference.
Even things like getting your name on bank accounts. I don't have to get involved in the bank account, but if something happens, it's going to be a lot easier if my name's already on it.
And I can go write a check for your rent if you're in the
right.
In my mom's case, she was in the skilled nursing getting rehab for her
absolutely
fracture and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. The other thing with the doctor too, Scott, I really want to bring up is if you don't get the response from the doctor's office that you think it warrants, ask the doctor if they think it might be something else that you should see a specialist about. Because too often I have doctors say, oh, let's wait 6 months and see. 6 months can be a long time in the course of a cognitive impairment. And if we can get at things sooner, then there are some medications that might help, but also diet and exercise and involvement social engagement is so important. Those are things that we can do sooner that can definitely help change the course of the disease.
Well, and maybe I'll just kind of close this out with this idea, because I know since those worst days come pretty far apart, that person who's affected can actually sound completely and they're like, I don't know why my kids are so upset about all this. And so when you come in with some specific things for the physician, you're coloring in the whole picture for him, because he doesn't see her any more than the 15 or 20 minutes he's there, right?
Right.
They don't know that we've reset her password on her streaming TV for the fourth time. We don't know that we've just lost our credit card for the third time it's been compromised, right? He doesn't see that.
Right.
And they're not bringing that information.
No, they appear as if there's no problems at all. Right. And I've had plenty of doctors say, oh, no, they're fine. And the family's walking out, pulling their hair. Like, how did they not see this? Yeah.
You weren't there the day they put diesel fuel in their gas tank instead, just to buy
all of the things. Right.
I don't. Well, listen, I'm going to wrap us up here. This has been so helpful and so good. And, for our audience, Michelle and I are going to have some additional conversations on some additional topics, but I felt this was a great place to start for us, because I think we know in Arizona specifically, Alzheimer's disease and falls are the absolute apex of the healthcare, the issues the healthcare system is facing with our population aging as rapidly as we are going to be contending with those two issues all the time. And you're just one of the very best. So thank you for taking some time with us. Anything else you want to say or share before we get out of here?
No, I'm so glad to be participating in this and getting this information out to folks. It's so important.
Thanks again, Michelle. You guys, this is Scott with Senior Resource Connectors, bringing you Michelle Cornelius from Cogir Senior Living. Thanks, and we're out.
It is our turn now to care for those who raised and cared for us.